Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Konetsky, and I'm the group publisher at Business Publications Corporation. Welcome to our first Project 515 of 2024, which is being brought to you today by our presenting sponsor, Midwest One Bank, and our supporting sponsor, DLR Group. It's our goal to help you do business better, and you all are the reason that we do this series. And this series is designed to help you and your business do just that. So our Project 515 event series is on real estate and development, and it's a series of focused virtual events that are going to dive into three specific subsections of the industry: retail, office, and housing. The series has a goal of illuminating future challenges and trends throughout the year while also amplifying discussions for the region's key stakeholders that do business directly in those sectors and those business leaders dependent on the health and vitality of the real estate industry, which of course we all are. So coverage of these discussions is going to appear both written and in video form. It's going to be integrated across the Business Record in print, our commercial real estate weekly e-newsletter, businessrecord.com, and social platforms. So we take this time, we take the energy today. It's not only for the audience, for you today, but it's also for our entire audience that can be able to learn, and for our reporting to be able to develop news story ideas off of today. We've got a great panel lined up for you to help peer a little bit into the future and see what the retail sector looks like in 2024 and beyond. And we've got a lot to discuss today. But before we get going, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsors that help make Project 515 possible. Our presenting sponsor is Midwest One Bank. It's being represented today by Devin Boyer, of the Central Iowa Market President. Please check out a brief video to learn a little bit more about Midwest One Bank.
Hello, and welcome to the Project 515 series. I'm Devin Boyer, Central Iowa Market President for Midwest One Bank. We are so honored to be the presenting sponsor of this year's virtual event series focusing on real estate and development. At Midwest One, community is at the heart of everything we do. Since 1934, we have embraced taking care of our customers and those who should be, with our experienced banking teams and proactive approach to generate meaningful impact for our stakeholders. Midwest One Bank is committed to providing solutions and resources that will help you succeed. This commitment is one of the many reasons we are happy to support the Business Record's Project 515 series. On behalf of everyone at Midwest One Bank, thank you for having us, and please enjoy the event.
Thanks again to Midwest One for your sponsorship of today's event and the entire series. We really appreciate you being able to help foster these discussions. Our next sponsor is supporting sponsor DLR Group. DLR has been a supporting sponsor since its inception, and DLR is a leading integrated design firm here in the Metro with offices around the globe and more than 1,000 design professionals. Their promise is to help elevate the human experience through design, and I'm pleased to welcome Austin Herndon, a senior associate at DLR Group. Austin, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, my name is Austin Herndon, and I'm an architect and project manager here at DLR Group. I am delighted to begin our discussion today on the fast-paced work of retail, from malls and big box stores to shopping centers and storefronts. To provide some background, DLR Group is an integrated design firm. Our core disciplines include architecture, engineering, interior design, and planning. From the creation of community-centric new construction to the thoughtful renovation of existing spaces, our brand promise at DLR Group is clear: to elevate the human experience through design. Our expertise spans across a diverse spectrum of project types, including culture and performing arts, hospitality, workplace, multifamily housing, entertainment districts, and retail. Today, we'll be digging into retail. Within this domain, DLR Group designs thriving, community-centric projects, weaving together spaces that support community needs, prioritizing the user experience. The strategic placement of retail at street level or within a community hub, such as a retail center, can redefine a neighborhood's experience, creating a dynamic tapestry where residents, businesses, and visitors converge in a lively, engaging atmosphere. Today, our panelists will explore the retail landscape in Des Moines. But I'd like to start with what we are experiencing across the country. Nationally, the retail landscape is undergoing a transformation with a shift towards prioritizing community building, immersive opportunities, and sustainable practices. The role of brick and mortar spaces continues to be redefined to fit the ever-changing needs of the modern shopper and resident. While convenience remains paramount, there is a notable resurgence in the demand for retail spaces that offer more than just transactions. They are reimagined as community hubs. An activated retail environment blends neighborhood boutiques, regional favorites, and national brands, creating an enticing tapestry of offerings. Additionally, the integration of pop-up shops, food trucks, and entertainment and wellness-focused amenities injects energy, bringing new concepts and experiences that draw people back for more than just shopping. It's about discovering something new at each visit. And as our awareness of our eco-footprint continues to grow, the shift towards prioritizing sustainable goals will soon be viewed as a fundamental necessity rather than a mere luxury. Sustainable practices like energy-efficient design solutions, renewable energy integration, and convertible layouts all contribute to minimizing our environmental impact. The future of retail design is at a convergence of innovation, sustainability, and human centricity. Now, let's extend the conversation to our panelists. On behalf of DLR Group, thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our panelists.
Thanks so much, Austin. Thank you for helping give a little bit of a preview of some of the topics I'm sure we're going to be diving into here very soon. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to introduce our panelists in just a minute here. We're going to ask a few questions to get things going, but you have a role to play as well too. If there's something you think we should be talking about, questions that you have for the panelists, please feel free to use the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the course of the event and would love to get your questions infused into the discussion to help shape what we should be talking about today. In addition, you can also you can chat with the entire audience. It's a great way to interact with the panelists throughout the event. We won't have the ability to answer every question, but we'll use that as background to help us guide the discussion today. We only have an hour or so to cover a lot of ground. I know we're barely going to be able to scratch the surface of today's topic, so let's go ahead and get started. Here to kick things off is our very talented and hardworking commercial real estate reporter, senior staff writer Michael Crumb. Michael's going to be leading the discussion today. I'll chime in from time to time, maybe with a follow-up question or two, but Michael, we'll go ahead and take it away from here.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today and everyone who's listening into this conversation. The greater Des Moines area has dozens of retail places where residents and visitors can shop, from big box stores to strip centers and storefronts along high traffic corridors in urban and suburban neighborhoods. Retail, as we all know, was greatly affected in the early stages of the pandemic, but it's continuing to transform and adapt, and leaders are redeveloping older areas, attracting new businesses to neighborhood districts and creating new retail areas in places that they didn't exist before. We've assembled a great group of folks to join us today on the panel. They all come from a wide variety of retail backgrounds to help give a window into what the future holds for the retail sector. Let's go ahead and introduce those panelists. First, we'd like to welcome Lisa Bates, Assistant Director of the Iowa Retail Initiative with the Iowa State University Extension. Mindy Bergstrom, owner of Cook's Emporium in Ames, along with Nook and Nest and ZW Mercantile. Jennifer Brown, the Economic Development Director for the City of Waukee. And Bill Wright, the Senior Vice President for CBRE. So again, let's thank all the panelists for joining us today to help guide us kind of through where the retail sector currently is and what we might expect to see in the months to come. Generally, just as a quick side note here, retail includes the sale of goods and services to the public, but for our discussion today, it will also include restaurants, bars, breweries, coffee shops, and others. So the first question I would like to pose to our panelists today, and you're going to see that we're going to kind of come back to this at the end of the conversation as well, but what is one trend or indicator you are watching that could be a harbinger for the retail sector over the next year? Jennifer, let's start with you today. If you want to kick us off by answering that question and sharing your thoughts with us.
Sure. For the city of Waukee, from our perspective, retail is booming out in the city of Waukee for sure. We have a lot of new growth, and certainly from the perspective of Waukee being the fastest growing community, we expect that to continue. But retail and service sectors really account for the largest number of employees in Waukee. We continue that employment to grow, and we anticipate it over the next few years, not just over the next year. And certainly we know that those employers that continue to add, new employees, we expect they're going to have to attract from outside our community. We wish they could all, come from the city of Waukee, but we know that's likely going to have to come from outside of our boundaries. So we know that there's a conversation that will need to be had around public transportation. And that is something we've already started, but we know that may be a challenge. We also know that, the wages maybe aren't quite such that, people can live in the home that they want to live and have an affordable housing. So that conversation needs to continue to be had within our community. And really that's anywhere, right? Not just the city of Waukee, but we want to make sure that if residents want to live and work in the city of Waukee, they have that opportunity. So we know that's a big mountain to climb, and that's really on our radar. And we're continuing to work through those concerns with our affordable housing project and have those conversations. So we know that's going to be something immediate and concerns that we have to address, and what that looks like, in terms of the transportation. Those are big conversation topics, and that we're continuing to talk about.
And Mindy, let's bring you into the conversation. As the owner of 3 local businesses, what are some indicators or things that you're closely watching as you look towards planning and further developing your businesses over the next year?
Sure. Some of the trends that I've at least been focusing on for 2024 is making sure all my products are online. Just with the pandemic, that was kind of the start of really pushing online sales and, curbside pickup, all that from a small business perspective. So quick and easy purchasing, the convenience of that, I think, is something that, is going to here to stay. Everyone is loving that option of going to an app and purchasing something on the spot there. Something else that I'm watching is influencers as external sales teams. So these are people that aren't actually on the sales floor. They're people that you send products to, and then they have their social media presence where they talk about where they get their products from. And I think from a small store perspective, that's something that, is something to look at. I know from a big box store perspective, you see that all the time with, Walmart and Amazon. You have all these influencers who have, thousands, millions of people watching them on their Instagram, opening up boxes from stores that they just received product from. So I feel like that seems to be a trend. And then I would say maybe the last one, and one that I always push hard for just with being a small business, is customer service. There is something that you can't get when you do buy something online. So if you are strictly brick and mortar without an online presence, or maybe not a huge online presence, having customer service is definitely key.
And Lisa, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. Before you answer the question, though, for folks who may not be clear or understand what the Iowa Retail Initiative is, can you give a quick kind of tutorial and summary of the work that you do?
Yeah, so at Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, we have the program called the Iowa Retail Initiative, where we're really looking at helping support independent and small businesses, particularly within that retail industry, helping at that local level support and strengthen that retail environment for those independent retailers. As you heard from Mindy, even from Jennifer, it's an all-inclusive issue. Retail is no longer, if it ever has been, just about one thing. And as we look at small businesses, we're really looking at how is that network of support in communities there ready to assist, because especially as an independent retailer, a small business owner, you're having to think about all things. And so how can you prioritize? How can you keep up with trends? How can you understand and make the best decisions you can for your customers?
So to kind of get into the question a little bit, from your perspective, through the lens of the work that you do, what are some of the things that you're closely watching to kind of gauge where the retail may be going over the next several months or year?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things that we look at is how do we support independent retailers and retailers that are already in place? How can we strengthen those at that local level? Like Mindy said, take them into some of the areas that maybe they haven't explored yet, utilizing their social media, getting beyond their bricks and mortar, but also taking a look at what are the trends going on across the state from your peer groups. We have information that's available for free for anybody in the state based on their county and their local community, that they can take a look at the trends that have been going on in retail over time with their peer groups and across the state. So we kind of try to keep a look at everything, but really help those retailers understand how to prioritize those decisions that they need to make.
Okay, and I think we're going to circle back and maybe have you go into a little more detail about what you're hearing from some of the people across the state. I think that'd be interesting for our audience to hear and get a better understanding of. Bill, let's bring you into the conversation through the commercial space lens that you deal with. What are some of the things that you're looking at closely here over the next several months or year?
Michael, you'd think being a commercial real estate broker, I might be talk about absorption or vacancy rates or lease rates, but the thing I'm watching most closely is unemployment, employment numbers, and unemployment rate. Many of the restaurants and retailers that CBRE represents, there's a real struggle to attract and retain talent right now. Wages, and it has a ripple effect, because it's difficult to find people to work in these stores. So there's really a hesitancy from many of these retailers and restaurants to open new locations, because it's been so difficult to find the necessary labor to run the operation. And we see this really heavy in the restaurant industry, but it's definitely all throughout retail. And it has a dramatic effect, again, a ripple effect, because if there's less locations being opened, there's less development, less retail development that's actually occurring, less absorption of new retail space because there is less development, and less energy out there as far as looking for new locations. So as a result, it's certainly a ripple effect, and the lack of available employment is a real concern for retailers and restaurants alike.
So moving on to the next question, and Bill, this is going to be for you. CBRE's most recent quarterly report, this is going to be a very general summary here, so bear with me and correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
but showed that retail vacancies were down, leasing was up, with the western suburbs kind of leading the way in this. And I'm wondering what factors are contributing to those numbers.
Well, there is, from an absorption standpoint, there is more space being absorbed. The vacancy is very low. And the reason is there's not a lot of new construction, Michael, going on out in the market. Certainly in Waukee and Ankeny and the Jordan Creek subcorridors, we're seeing some new construction, but it's relatively little, except for maybe Jennifer's community of Waukee there with the new Target Center there. But in relative speaking, there's very little new construction out there. So what's happening is the available space that maybe had traditionally been considered a B or C location, it's getting absorbed because there's still a need for businesses to grow. It may not be as strong as ultimately we would like, but there's still a need to find new locations. And so we're seeing that quite a bit, that the B and C space is filling up. So as a result, we have positive absorption. We have very low vacancies in the Des Moines market. We're under 5%. Nationally, we're under 5%. That is historically low nationally and locally, although Des Moines has always been a very, very stable market. But certainly from a national standpoint, it's a very, very low vacancy. So that's really the new construction is expensive, Michael. Land's expensive. The covenants that cities and municipalities often place upon a retail developer are heavy, and expensive to build. And there's also fewer retailers out there today, which is another thing we could spend another full hour on, is there's just less retailers out there to lease space.
So I'm wondering, do you see any of what you just said changing over the next year? Do you see construction increasing, or is there any indication out there that could turn?
I really don't. We're in a market where interest rates are, definitely from a short-term basis higher than they were 24, 36, 48 months ago. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of speculative new construction. So I think I really don't see many changes. I think the new construction in Des Moines is going to be centered around build-to-suit type projects. Actually, the target project, Waukee Town Center in Jennifer's community, is probably an exception, because I think there will be some speculative space that has not been leased that'll probably be built with that project. But that's not going to be the norm. Most likely, new construction is going to be centered around it's pre-leased, or it's build-to-suit type construction where a tenant's already been identified. And I think that's really, we're going to see more of the same. I don't expect an explosion of new retail construction from a speculative standpoint.
And Jennifer, let's bring you into the conversation. And Bill has talked about some of the activity going on in Waukee recently with the new Target store and the big town center development. First, do you want to give us a quick update on where some of those projects stand?
Yeah, I mean, Target is, and I don't like us to say a specific timeline, but certainly we expect Target to be open by the end of the year. Without giving away a specific date, I'm guessing that will be before Christmas, right? So they probably want to make that deadline. There's a couple of other projects that have been approved by City Council. A Freddy's, a Chase Bank is also locating in that space as well. So there's some other projects that have been talked about, but nothing is official at this point. So, we're really excited for it. A lot of the amenities have gone in. This is intended to be a lifestyle center. Some of the things that Austin talked about in the beginning, we really want this to be more of a shopping experience. So opportunities for people to gather, and there's going to be an amphitheater. There'll be an ice skating rink. There's a large 8-acre pond amenity as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for the community to gather. It also takes the place of a nice park that's lacking in that neighborhood adjacent. So it'll be a nice amenity for the community in general, and also a shopping experience overall. There's other along Grand Prairie Parkway, there's some other retail planned as well, but I imagine that that will be a little bit slower. So some of the things that Bill's talked about, certainly he's an expert in that field, and it's spot on though in terms of how I imagine how Waukee will continue to develop retail. So with some of the struggles that we have which it seems like it's not brain science, of course, is that leasable space is very expensive. We mostly have new space. We don't have much second generation, third generation space. It's really challenging to find space. We've lost a lot of prospects to our neighboring communities because it's just more affordable for them to locate in those communities. And I'm talking about a lot of retail opportunities. They've just gone elsewhere because, we just can't place them in our communities. And a lot of independently owned businesses, restaurants, retail, we just lost them because they just can't find a spot in Waukee. And sometimes they just can't find a spot, period, because there's nothing available. It's just not built yet. So new retail is coming online, but certainly we have significant challenges here. And not that I'm complaining, because we have a lot of great opportunities here, but certainly there's, there are some challenges here.
With that much growth, with the growth that's occurring, and you addressed a little bit of this, but the needs to meet things that need to happen to meet the workforce needs. You mentioned affordable housing, things like transportation. What is Waukee doing to really help, address those issues?
Yeah, well, I think I briefly mentioned the affordable housing, and it's, no secret. We've shared before that we're working on an affordable housing project. We have about 13 acres. We're working with Habitat for Humanity and workforce housing tax credits. on 48 townhome projects. So we hope that that's the only one like that in the nation. So we're excited for that partnership, and they're working on that tax credit right now. So hopefully that will go forward and we'll move that project and move the needle on that. And then also we have a Wisconsin developer, North Point, that will be on a portion of that site as well. And they're also working on, I think, 46 townhomes. So, you know, they're looking at low income tax housing credits as well on that property. So we really do hope to move the needle there, but we know that's not the only part of the discussion in terms of you know, affordable housing. So that's important. In terms of transportation, you know, that's been a top priority for City Council, and we know that we're going to continue to take a look at that. We've done some initial research, and we want to make sure that we're addressing the need, meeting the needs of the community overall, and we want to make sure that it's the right research in front of us. And obviously, there's going to be a huge influx of employees with Target, and then some of the other retail that's coming online. So we'll continue to revisit that over time.
Thank you. Mindy, let's bring you into the conversation through the lens of a small business owner, the owner of several small businesses. I'd like you to talk about a couple of things. What needs to happen, first of all, to keep the momentum that, for instance, you're seeing in downtown Ames, where there has been a lot of activity and growth and really creation of an increasingly vibrant downtown district. What needs to happen to keep that kind of momentum moving forward?
Sure. I think 2020 was a great way for everyone to realize how important shopping local is. And I think that's what needs to continue to happen. So everyone supporting locally owned small businesses, and just getting out, even just not even to buy something, but to just get out and enjoy the spaces and offerings of communities. We see a lot of people coming in for day trips. You know, we're really becoming a destination because of the variety that we have in Ames. I feel like there's some other growth areas that we can definitely tap into within our community in Ames, to get people to stay for more than just a day. And I know, you know, being on the Convention and Visitors Bureau board and, you know, being on that for multiple years, there's a lot of opportunities still that we haven't tapped into for Ames. But I think, again, growth too, if we could get more space, more buildings, that would provide more opportunities for other, hopefully independent retailers to come in and open up shop too. The more the merrier, really.
From the space perspective, you own 3 businesses, but one of those businesses has a presence in both Ames and Ankeny. Is that correct?
Yep.
So how much of a challenge has it been in recent years to find space that was affordable for you as a small business owner to really move forward with your plans and open those shops?
Sure. Finding space was definitely a challenge. Also, always trying to plan ahead. You know, the original space we looked at in the district at Prairie Trail was a smaller space. And, you know, just thinking ahead, gosh, you know, what happens if I do really well and I want to expand? Then I have to spend all that money again for signage and fixtures and all that stuff to move to another location. So we ended up just going into a space that was a little bit larger than what we hoped for. But we did it because we hoped for that growth. Managing 2 stores in different cities is definitely a challenge when you don't have managers, and being a small business owner, sometimes you can't afford managers. So yeah, I think finding the space is always a challenge, but you just got to keep in mind location, location, location.
And Lisa, let's bring you into the conversation. You're bringing a different perspective maybe to the discussion today with the role that you have. You talked about trying to help small businesses and folks across the state. What are you hearing particularly from people across the state about some of those challenges and opportunities that they're facing today?
Yeah, I hear a lot of the same challenges that I brought up today in this panel. It doesn't matter what size of community you're in. There are some of the same distinct issues. looking for qualified or workforce that will stick with you, making sure they have the proper training. And that becomes a community-wide issue. And that's where we start to take a look at it through the Iowa Retail Initiative. This is a community-based issue. And we really need to tackle not only retail specific issues, but looking holistically at it. So looking at things such as housing and the affordability of your housing, looking and making sure that retailers have connections in your community to find spaces, making sure that if they want to grow, they have connections to make sure that that environment is available for them. So it's a lot about relationships and making those key relationships within a community of any size to understand not only existing retailers in your community and what their needs are, but also looking at who are those new up and coming entrepreneurs that might be entering your space as well.
You mentioned that some of these challenges are there no matter the size of the community. Is there any geographic differences that you're seeing as you move across the state? Are there pockets that you see are facing greater challenges than others, maybe?
Well, you'll find actually really good success stories and some pockets that need maybe opportunities to happen all across the state. So I don't think it's necessarily a regional issue. I do think we need to take a look at what is occurring in a community a little deeper when they're being when they have really great success, such as Ames has had. I live in Ames, and I get the opportunity to keep seeing the retail explore and be able to take part in a lot of the things they did during COVID. And again, that was kind of looking at what retailers are to each other. And like Mindy said, the more the merrier. So starting to work across those different bricks and mortar walls, looking at how you offer, how you learn from each other, how you keep exploring is one of those great gifts that we've seen across the state in some of those more successful retail districts in many different sizes of communities across the state. So even from very small communities, we've found pockets of success. But there's a lot of opportunity out there still in all areas of the state.
All right.
Michael, I would add to that, and to Lisa's point, she mentioned Ames. Ames has done a great job. I mean, if you think about the former Kmart there at Buckeye and South Duff, that has been totally renovated by a company, a retail developer. They brought in some tremendous national retail names into that former Kmart, and it's now, I believe, called Duff Plaza. And, that's a perfect example of just kind of re-energizing old retail space, something that Jennifer was talking about that she doesn't have in Waukee, which is exactly right, because you don't have, the community's not old enough to have those second generation spaces. But Lisa's right. I mean, in Ames, they just did a phenomenal job with that project, and it's been wildly successful and still growing.
All right, very good. And just a reminder to everybody that if you do want to chime in and if something that somebody else says triggers a thought, feel free just to jump in and contribute to the conversation. I'd like to move on to the next section of today's discussion, and these are going to be questions that I'm going to pose to each and every one of you, and again, feel free to jump in as needed. But first, what are some strategies that really could help the retail sector move forward over the next year? And Bill, let's stick with you. What strategies do you think communities and the business community could employ to really help the retail sector continue to thrive?
Well, I mean, unless you're a retailer looking for new locations and there's not as much product available. So, if Mindy's wanting to open a new store, it's, as she mentioned, it might have been hard to find the right location. I mean, the retail sector is in really good shape right now from a health standpoint. You have low vacancy, you have appreciating rents in our market. I've been doing this for 32 years. 20 years ago, rents were flat in the central Iowa market. And now they appreciate at 2% or sometimes even higher, up to 3% per year. So that is, from a health standpoint, from a landlord developer standpoint, we're in a very healthy climate. I think to keep things moving, personally, I would love to see interest rates start to settle back down. We've had some promises that they're going to settle back down. I would love to see that start happening, because then I think maybe there would be a little bit more of a appetite to do some new retail projects. So and maybe something that's not 100% pre-leased or have to be 80% pre-leased. Maybe there'd be a little bit more of a risk orientation associated with some developers unwilling to build some new retail in some emerging markets. So from my standpoint, to really keep things going, I'd love to see the cost of financing start to maybe come back a little bit.
Jennifer, strategies that are needed to help move the retail sector forward and continue this momentum?
Well, I mean, I'll just speak from our perspective, the development in the community overall. I think it would be great to see retail development in our community continue on the path of, like Waukee Town Center, have the lifestyle amenities, have like a smaller community district with retail integrated. I just think that increases opportunity overall for consumers and retailers alike, and promotes a really healthy lifestyle in our community, and people and visitors want to come back to the community. So I think it's for us out here in Waukee, we still have a lot of pockets of open land where, develop master planning or planning those types of retail districts. We still have that space and opportunity to do that, and I'd like to see that happen a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's a really great strategy moving forward.
And Lisa, what are your thoughts on this as far as strategies that could be employed to really help move the retail sector forward?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said by Jennifer and Bill. I'll just add on that I think a lot of things need to happen at a relationship level. So making sure that there is that support at that community level, making sure that the network for retailers, whether it's if they need a loan to maybe grow in their business, making sure there's that healthy environment. And thinking about, again, the location, not only just for the retailer, but the whole success of your community, making sure that it has that vibrancy, that people are able to connect with that environment. There's a mixture within that environment. So thinking about how do you place your retail within your community? Where can we take advantage of specific locations that maybe have some of that already going? And then I'll also say for those independent retailers, you don't have to compete against, and you don't want to compete against some of the big box. What's your niche? So what do you bring to the table that others don't bring to the table? A lot of that has to do with experiences, customer service, again, relationships with your customers that you can't get at that large scale retail level.
And Mindy, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. As a small business owner, what needs to happen, not only for yourself, but your fellow small business owners in the region to really keep this momentum forward and keep the retail sector strong?
Yeah, I'm glad I can go last because I jot a bunch of notes down. So some of the bullet points that I put together was, having full package marketing plans of making sure you're doing social media, doing e-newsletters, doing in-store signage, making sure your branding all fits together, because then that, like you say, it's going to be your niche, and that is how you're going to be recognizable to the community and hopefully have repeat business. The other big one that I feel maybe gets missed is looking at reporting. Shelf space is super valuable. So looking at what items are being sold at quicker rates than others, what are kind of dead products that are sitting there taking up shelf space and not moving. When you're paying per square foot, every space in your store matters. So I think, as a small business owner, that's probably something that I need to focus on more. Just finding that time and really looking at the reporting on a monthly or weekly basis, or even quarterly. The other big thing too for strategies for moving forward is listen to your customers. What do they ask for and leave empty-handed with? There's a lot of insight you can gain for just talking with your customers, providing that customer service, and then hearing what products or things they can't find in the community, and then maybe you can be a resource for that. The other item, collaborations. So collaborating with other independent retailers, small business owners, even business owners that don't have storefronts, if they, are at farmers markets or kind of just do pop-up shops, invite them into your spaces, and that allows you all to share that customer base that you individually have. The other thing is joining organizations. So joining Chamber of Commerce's, or if you have downtown organizations or a part of Main Street, Iowa, that is really helpful because they do provide a lot of free resources to help your business grow. And then the last thing that I knew I really wanted to do when I bought Cook's Emporium is I wanted to volunteer, and I wanted to be within the community, because when you're involved, you're also aware of what's going on, which then helps your business be successful because you know what events are coming up in your downtown, and you just know other business owners too, and how they run their business to get ideas and figure out if there are collaboration opportunities. That was a lot.
The next question I'm going to, oh, I'm sorry. Did someone want to add something?
No, I was just saying that was a lot. I have a lot of bullets. I told you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm done.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Well, Mindy, I'd like to stick with you and let you share some more of your thoughts. You mentioned that the pandemic really, showed the importance of maintaining a brick and mortar presence. Obviously, online sales have continued to grow. Last I looked, they were maybe 20 to 30% on average of total retail sales for many businesses. I'm wondering how you balance that growth in online sales and in your online presence with your desire and the need to still maintain a brick and mortar presence.
Sure. I think the Ames community is a little bit unique compared to a lot of other communities out there. I actually don't have a huge amount of online sales. It's definitely a goal for 2014 to increase that. So I've put a lot of steps in place with, making sure our products are online, making sure the images look good, there are descriptions there. And the big thing in 2024 too is making sure our inventory is right. During the pandemic, we kind of threw a bunch of our products on an online store, and then people would purchase them, and then we were off inventory by one, so it's also then embarrassing to have to tell that customer, oof, sorry, we don't actually have what you just ordered. So that's why, you do have to think ahead and plan ahead on all aspects of your on your business, because if you don't have your inventory accurate, it's going to make it very difficult to sell things online. So I can't really speak to online sales that much. I feel like 2024 has been an increase, and we've been doing some more boosted campaigns and things on social media to push online. But we haven't really seen such a big increase yet after the pandemic.
And Lisa, I'd like to bring you in because of the conversations you have with small businesses across the state. How much are they talking about that, about the need for an online presence, and as far as a way to enhance their business?
I think it's an individual kind of cost benefit analysis where you start to take a look at the things that Mindy brought up. There's a lot that goes into being online and also managing in bricks and mortar. And so starting to see what your customers really want to have, and if there is that market out there for you. Do you need that market, or are you doing really well serving your customers the way you are through your bricks and mortar? And then I would say, if you still are interested in exploring that potential, take a walk down your retail street and start to make relationships with some of the other business owners, see how they went into it, get some guidance on that, start to see what the pitfalls might be, where the opportunities might be. and learn from each other, because I think that's one of the areas that really came out during the pandemic is a lot of conversations, exploration because you had to, but really having to figure out what works best for your customers and your business itself.
And Bill, I'm just going to give you a chance to chime in here for a little bit. In the commercial space, is online impacting the conversations you're having with prospective tenants or owners of a property?
I think Lisa hit it spot on, that it's an individual decision, Michael, in terms of how they evaluate that. But what I think the change we're seeing from my perspective in the brokerage industry is, as a result of some of the national retailers taking on a more significant online presence, and we've seen the downsizing, the shrinking of formats. You know, your Best Buy store 20 years ago, we all remember they used to be 50,000 feet. Now they're 25,000 feet or 20,000 feet. So we've seen that with a lot of national retailers where they've really, in their mind, right-sized the bricks and mortar location. I would just reiterate, my comment there was not that bricks and mortar will ever be going away, because I don't think it ever will. I think there's always going to be a place for a destination, somewhere to shop. What the other thing that I think, as retailers have grown on, so this is kind of my second answer to that question, as we've seen more online presence with some retailers, what it's been replaced with is the experience-based retailer, which I think most communities would love to have. You know, the easiest example to talk about in Central Iowa is obviously the Jordan Creek, where Dave and Buster's, and now Topgolf's going to open, and you had the bowling place, and you have the putts and pins place. You have all these experience-related retailers that maybe 20 years ago, those would have been filled with Hallmark and Blockbuster Video and Sally Beauty Supply. But now they're based with, you know, more experience-based retailers that have a bar or food component to it. And so I think I think to a certain degree, that increase in the in experience-based retail is a result of a lot of other retailers that either have gone away or they've more focused on online presence, and they've kind of right-sized their store formats.
All right, very good. And Jennifer, do you want to add anything to the conversation about online retailers?
I think they covered it. I just am wondering, who is Blockbuster?
There is one thing that I wouldn't mind chiming in about, and that's fraud. Just because with online, there's always going to be the opportunity of fraud to take place. Unfortunately, we were a victim of that, where someone did an online sale, a very large online sale, and picked it up, had him on camera and everything. And then a couple weeks later, he submitted something with his bank saying that there was a fraud charge at our store. So, you know, we submitted the video, the receipt, the email, order confirmation, everything like that. But the bank still actually ended up going with the customer on that one. So we were out, you know, $1,700 worth of product and $1,700 we had to give back. So, you know, I always take that as a learning opportunity. So something for small businesses to really watch out for is just making sure that you're double checking IDs, you know, have a little bit more of a process when that online order is a larger amount. The other thing recently for fraud that has come across my plate is someone asked for 25 gift baskets created for their guests for their daughter's wedding. And that was actually fraud as well, because towards the end, I was like, oh, seems weird. But it's kind of a scary world when it comes to online. And I feel like that's why I'm so fortunate to be in downtown Ames, where brick and mortar is very strong.
We're looking at the clock ticking by pretty quickly here. We only have a few more minutes left. I do have an additional question that I would like to pose to all of you. And it's kind of going back to the first question about what things you're watching, what indicators you're watching as far as the health of retail over the next year. I'd like to give you all an opportunity to kind of give us your forecast for retail now for the next 6 to 12 months. And Bill, we'll start with you.
Michael, I think it's going to be more of the same. I mentioned that in my earlier comments. I expect vacancies to remain very low. I expect really little new construction. If there is new construction, it's going to be based upon projects that are pre-leased or have significant or build-to-suit activity. I think the American consumer, despite the rising interest rate environment, continues to spend dollars. So I think there's going to continue to be some strength in the retail corridor. Landlords, 5 years ago in the capital markets business, retail was the one thing that banks and investors were staying away from. Now it's one of the darling of the investment marketplace. And I think you're going to continue to see strength in retail. There's always going to be in particular situations, there are going to be things to watch. I mean, certainly, when a large bankruptcy like Bed Bath and Beyond occurred, you'll see certain vacancies, and the community might be find some vacancy out there. But overall, I expect more of the same.
And Jennifer, let's go back to you. Give us your quick forecast for retail for the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, I can't argue with Bill. And I certainly think that, we're doing pretty well in Waukee, and we'll continue to see retail growth in Waukee. We're adding new retail square footage, and it's in the pipeline, and we're growing by 7 people per day. And that's a pretty sweet spot for new retailers to want to be. So we'll continue to see that growth. It may not be as fast as it was the previous year, but I certainly think we'll still continue to see that growth. And there's lots of opportunity in Waukee. So at Waukee Town Center, we'll continue to see that fill out. And I know there's other projects that are in the pipeline in other parts of Waukee that will be announced probably in the next year, 6 to 12 months, as you said. So we're excited about that. And so from Waukee's perspective, it looks pretty good. And we have a high household income here. So people spend money here. And I don't think consumers, it's amazing to me, just like Bill said, it's amazing people are still spending money despite the inflation. And I think even all over in West Des Moines in general, in the western part suburbs, people are spending money. The household income is high. So I think it looks pretty good for us here.
You mentioned people spending money, and the latest consumer confidence report showed that consumer confidence was up for the first time in several months. So obviously that's a positive sign. Lisa, let's bring you into the conversation. Give us your forecast for the retail sector for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, since mainly we look at communities with independent retail and small businesses, I really feel that there's still the space for them in those communities across the state. I think the state and every community needs to take a look at what are those barriers and what are some of those hurdles with getting people to live in your community, getting people to buy in your community. So taking a look holistically at your community and starting to address those issues. But I think there's still this quality and connection to independent retail that other retailers don't have the ability to do. So I think there's still these opportunities in every community across the state for independent retail. We just need the support network there.
And Mindy, let's turn to you to bring it home for us today. Give us your forecast for retail for the next 6 to 12 months.
Sure. Chime in with whatever everyone else said. Supporting local, having those experiences, making a full day trip of it. So not necessarily just running in for an errand, but spending a whole afternoon enjoying a restaurant and then shopping and walking around different areas. Just unique shopping destinations seems to be of value. And then, for those independent retailers and small businesses, for forecasting wise, just make sure you adapt and read those reports, because I don't know if you listen to NPR Marketplace, but Kai Risdall says the forecast is looking good. I think it is going to be focused on experiences and less on material items. So I have seen like a decrease in furniture, but I've seen an increase in like the cooking classes we offer. So those experiences paired with, the option of retail, I think is a great pair.
All right. Well, I would like to thank all the panelists for joining us again today. And Chris, I'm going to turn it back to you to wrap things up.
All right. Well, we hope you all enjoyed your experience today with us and enjoyed today's programming. If you want to continue to participate in things like this going forward, we've got a number of events that are coming up in the future, some that relate to real estate and development as well. On June 20th, we've got a fearless focus on childcare, a huge component of the workforce discussion, some of which was interwoven today as well. So we'd love to have you participate in that virtual event. On July 11th, our Innovation Iowa event. It's a new panel discussion event and lunch at the Des Moines Heritage Center. We'll be learning all about the great innovations happening across the state, many, of course, which then infuse into the office and into the workplace, which, of course, affects real estate and development. And on July 18th, we have our Innovation Iowa first think tank of the year. We're going to be talking about people and culture at that. And on August 1st, Women of Influence at the Marriott in downtown Des Moines. On August 15th, we'll have our next in the series of Project 515. We're going to be talking about the office marketplace. A lot of things happening in that area, a lot of conversion, a lot of people looking at the open in vacancy rates and looking at what we can be doing with that space. So I'm sure that's going to be a really interesting discussion. That will be on August 15th. And in April, our business record members received the latest edition of the annual real estate magazine. We'd love to have you check that out. Senior staff writer Michael Crumb and Kathy Bolton, our whole team really worked hard to bring you that project. If you enjoyed some of the things we talked about today, the magazine goes really deep into a number of different topics from across the real estate spectrum. You can find more at businessrecord.com/AREM, and you can check out all those features on the website as well. And if you're interested in becoming a member of the Business Record, you can receive one as well by signing up. In addition, Commercial Real Estate Weekly, if you don't already receive that, we would highly encourage you to receive the e-newsletter. It comes out every Wednesday. It's stacked with the latest breaking news related to commercial real estate. So make sure to check that out. It's free, comes every Wednesday. Michael Crumb and Kathy Bolton are working each and every week on that as well. If you have any feedback for us on today's event, if you have any story ideas, please feel free to reach out to us. Michael Crumb specifically, if anything today spurred any ideas of things that you think we should be covering, that's how we get the best ideas to help share with the community. So please feel free to reach out his way. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending. As a reminder, we make this series free and available to the community thanks to the support of sponsors like Midwest One and DLR Group. We too are a locally owned business, and we're working hard to navigate through all of the things that are happening in the business world. And so you can help ensure that we can help continue to bring this quality reporting and programming to you by helping support us. So sponsorships and advertising are available to help support us. If you're interested, please feel free to reach out our way. And if you're interested in getting your message out in front of the real estate and development community, this is a fantastic way for you to be able to do that. Also, I want to give a big thanks to Michael Crumb for putting together a great group of panelists today and fantastic questions. We're lucky to have Michael writing for us and continuing to work each and every day to cover the commercial real estate industry. And of course, to our speakers, we're so grateful for your expertise and forecasting abilities. Thank you for helping put yourself out there, be a little vulnerable and help understand what might be coming down the pathway when it comes to retail. We know you can't hear your applause, but if you can in the chat, give them a big thank you. We really appreciate their work. Thank you again for being here today. We know you could be in many places. My name is Chris Konetsky, and we're working hard each and every day on Project 515 to help build and strengthen the community. If our staff can ever be of any help, if you never need anything, or if you have store ideas, feel free to reach out our way. Until then, thank you again for joining us, and have a great afternoon.